What happens when a superhero meant to save a franchise becomes the reason people stop believing in it? That was the uncomfortable question hanging over Hollywood when The Flash finally raced into theaters. This wasn't just another DC movie. It was supposed to reset timelines, fix years of creative confusion, and open the door to a brand new DC universe. Instead, it exposed how fragile blockbuster empires really are when real life refuses to stay off screen. The Flash was never just a movie. From the moment The Flash was announced, Warner Bros. Positioned it as far more than another entry in the DC lineup. Internally and publicly, it was framed as the keystone of the entire DC extended universe, a film that could quietly repair years of creative confusion. The multiverse storyline wasn't just fan service designed to excite comic readers, it was a calculated corporate strategy. Time travel meant continuity errors could be erased, actors could be replaced without saying the word reboot, and unpopular decisions could be rewritten as destiny rather than mistakes. On paper, it was elegant, almost genius. But the plan relied on something DC no longer had in abundance: audience trust. Years of uneven storytelling, tonal whiplash, and constantly shifting direction had trained viewers to be cautious, asking them to believe this movie would finally fix everything required goodwill that had already been spent. The Flash wasn't just racing against villains or timelines, it was racing against skepticism built over a decade. From unconventional star to unavoidable headline. Ezra Miller was never a typical superhero lead, known for intense indie performances and a deliberately unconventional public persona. Miller stood out in a genre built on polished likability. That uniqueness once felt like an asset. Then, starting around 2020 and escalating sharply in 2022, Miller became associated with a series of arrests, allegations, and disturbing public incidents that dominated entertainment news. Each incident added another crack to an already shaky foundation. In August 2022, Miller publicly acknowledged struggling with serious mental health issues and announced they were seeking treatment. That statement was widely reported and, for many, necessary. But in Hollywood, perception moves faster than rehabilitation. Even as some cases were resolved or dropped, the overall narrative had already taken hold. Ezra Miller was no longer the Flash. Ezra Miller was the problem. Warner Bros. Faces a no-win situation. By mid-2022, Warner Bros. Discovery found itself trapped in a situation with no clean exit. Canceling The Flash outright would have meant writing off hundreds of millions of dollars and publicly admitting failure. Recasting and reshooting was financially unrealistic, especially for a film so dependent on its lead performance and multiverse mechanics. Delaying the movie indefinitely would only allow controversy to fester and grow. So the studio chose the least damaging option available: release the film, minimize Ezra Miller's public presence, and hope the movie itself could outrun the headlines. Executives publicly praised the film, signaling confidence to investors and audiences alike. Industry insiders emphasized strong test screenings, and marketing leaned heavily into nostalgia, spectacle, and surprise cameos. But no amount of marketing could fully erase the uncomfortable truth. For many viewers, The Flash no longer represented excitement or curiosity. It represented chaos, uncertainty, and a franchise that looked like it was constantly putting out fires instead of building something stable. When the box office tells a brutal story, The Flash finally arrived in theaters in June 2023 with massive expectations and one of the widest releases of the year. Opening weekend numbers were disappointing, but the real damage came afterward. Audience drop-off was sharp, repeat viewings were limited, and word of mouth never recovered momentum. The conversation around the film quickly shifted from "is it good?" to "what went wrong?" By the end of its run, The Flash grossed roughly $271 million worldwide. In a vacuum, that number sounds impressive. In blockbuster economics, it was widely regarded as a major financial failure, especially given the film's production costs, marketing expenses, and strategic importance. This wasn't meant to be just profitable. It was supposed to be transformational. Instead, the box office performance turned The Flash into a symbol of everything that had gone wrong with the old DC era. A movie designed to reset the universe instead confirmed that the reset was already overdue. Why this controversy hit harder than others? Hollywood has survived scandals before. So why did this one feel different? Because The Flash needed more than ticket sales, it needed belief. The movie asked audiences to emotionally invest in a future that didn't yet exist. But the surrounding chaos made the studio look unsure, reactive, and out of control. Superhero films aren't just movies anymore. They're long-term promises. When the lead actor's real-life story feels unresolved and unstable, that promise collapses. People don't want to board a cinematic universe that feels like it might implode at any moment. The James Gunn reset and the awkward aftermath. As DC Studios transitioned into new leadership under James Gunn, The Flash immediately became an uncomfortable artifact of the past. Gunn avoided confirming whether the character would continue in the new DCEU and consistently downplayed casting rumors. That hesitation spoke volumes. The movie that was meant to bridge eras ended up belonging to neither. It wasn't fully embraced by the old DC guard, and it wasn't clearly part of the new vision. In franchise terms, that's worse than failure. It's irrelevance. Ezra Miller's tentative return to the spotlight. By 2024 and into 2025, reports indicated that Ezra Miller had largely stepped away from public life and was cautiously exploring a return to acting. Festival appearances and news of a potential new film project suggested Hollywood hadn't closed the door entirely. And that raises another uncomfortable question: how long does scandal last when talent is still considered valuable? For prestige films or niche projects, the answer might be not that long. For superhero franchises aimed at mass audiences and global brands, the tolerance level is far lower. Studios aren't just protecting profits, they're protecting identities. The real dark secret isn't Ezra Miller. Here's the part Hollywood doesn't love to admit. Ezra Miller didn't destroy DC. DC was already unstable. Years of inconsistent tone, rushed decisions, leadership changes, and reactive planning had weakened the brand. Miller's controversy didn't cause the collapse, it exposed it. When stress hit the system, it cracked. And everyone could see it. A cautionary tale for modern blockbusters. The downfall surrounding The Flash isn't just gossip or celebrity drama. It's a warning about how modern franchises work. Control matters. Consistency matters. And public trust is more fragile than ever. You can have great actors, massive budgets, and ambitious ideas, but if the audience senses chaos behind the curtain, they walk away. That's all for today's videos. If you want more deep, honest videos of Hollywood stories like this, like and subscribe, and stay with us for what comes next.